Recently, the Maldives president, Mohammad Muizzu, he had claimed that India had agreed to remove its troops from the Maldives soil. While the presence of Indian troops in Maldives has always remained an issue of contention, but the recent issue has gained even more attention as the similar strands of issues can be seen between India and its other neighbors as well. So hello everyone, my name is Shweta and in this video, we're going to discuss about the Maldives issue and how it has wider implications throughout India's neighborhood and how the common thread linking between in Maldives and the neighbor issues, it found resonance along the other issues that India faced as well. So in this video, the points of discussion would revolve around, first we'll look at how the wider neighborhood perspective for India is getting changed. Then we'll look at specifically the developments that has taken place in Maldives after the newly elected president has come to power. Then we'll see what are the other issues that India faces in neighborhood in general. We'll look at the implications of these issues on India's interest. And in the end, we'll conclude this discussion with a way forward. So to start this discussion, we'll first look at India and its neighborhood map. So roughly the region of South Asia, it comprises the expanse of India's neighborhood. Now, as I said, the most recent issue we can see of Maldives. In Maldives, in the recently held elections, the election campaign of Mohammad Muizzu, it was very vocal around the India Out campaign. By India Out, he meant that the dominance of Indian troops in the Maldives region, Maldives would be getting rid of it. Now, after he came to power, in the presidential inauguration ceremony itself, he highlighted this problem with the Indian minister and asked India to remove its troops from Maldives soil. While this can be seen as a standalone problem, but the wider issue behind it seems to be lying of autonomy. So Maldives, it is asking for more autonomy and less interference from India in its own sphere. But when we think of Maldives and the India Out campaign, can we find some resonance of this particular issue and this particular type of demand that has been raised from India's other neighbors as well? Right? Can you think of some of the similar examples that we have getting from our neighborhood? So we'll look at some of the examples here. If we look at Bangladesh, India and Bangladesh has been viewing concerns regarding the treatment of minorities. As Muslim majority region of Bangladesh, they view the domestic policies of India such as the Citizenship Amendment Act as detrimental to the Muslim interest, and they have been time and again protesting against India's domestic politics demands. Apart from Bangladesh, we have seen Myanmar. See, as Myanmar borders India's sensitive northeast region, there have been times and again apprehensions that Myanmar, it is fostering or helping the extremist forces that are present in northeast India to help in destabilizing India. Apart from Myanmar, we can see in Sri Lanka, the 13th Amendment, which was supposed to give more rights to the Tamils, there are now concerns that maybe the newly formed government in Sri Lanka, it may repeal it after the 20th Amendment. So the fears of Tamils' rights, which will be getting even harmed after such developments, they are getting more voice in Sri Lanka. Apart from it, in Nepal also. Nepal in 2019, it came up with new maps which claimed many parts of Indian territories at their own. So the neighbors which were generally very friendly towards India and have been our historical friends, they have also started getting contentious issues with India. Apart from Nepal, Bhutan also. In 2007, Bhutan has sought amendments to the friendship treaty that India had. Bhutan had set off its foundational agreement. After that treaty, Bhutan has, voiced for more sovereign foreign policy. And after that, Bhutan's foreign minister, he has made several visits to China as well. So all these problems in our neighborhood, we see one by one, our relations with our neighbors are getting deteriorated. If we talk about Pakistan and China, it would not be coming as a surprise to you that the relations are generally being very hostile. If we look towards more westward direction with Iran, right, in the increasing perspective of the Israel-Hamas war, if you want to know more about the Israel-Hamas war, we have also made that discussion in another video. Please take a look at it. But as Israel and Iran, they have contradictory interests. So India is also finding it hard to balance between Iran and Israel. And Iran also, it is moving towards other powers who are giving more support to it. So our relations with Iran also are getting disturbed. Then apart from Iran, if we go on more towards West, we have a small nation of Qatar, right? The Qatar issue you must have also heard of very recently. The 8 Navy men, they have also sentenced to death. We have also made another video on it. So please look at that discussion also to have a better picture and understanding of the neighborhood relations. So the relations with, we see that throughout the sphere of our horizons, the relations are getting disturbed. And if you try to connect all these issues together, what can be the common thread that can be found between these issues? क्या आपको लगता है कि कोई एक चीज ऐसी है जो इन सब इश्यूज में कॉमन है? अगर आप देखें तो generally the voices are against India's increasing interference, and particularly coming to the Maldives case, we'll see that how India's interference or autonomy from India, it has even gained more voice in the recent election or after the recent elections. So when the elections took place, President Mohammad Muizzu, he had made this statement that we don't want any foreign military boots on Maldivian soil. So this was particularly against the foreign interference on Maldives territory. He also said, as he is viewed as pro-China leader, he said that neither he is pro-China nor he is pro-India. He is a pro-Maldivian leader. So initially his demands were centered around the foreign occupation or the foreign interference on his territory. But after he has elected to the power and he had made request to Indian government to remove his troops from the Maldives soil, so on December 3, Mohammad Muizzu stated that Indian government has accepted its request and it is ready to remove its troops who have been stationed on humanitarian grounds in the Maldives. While the Indian government, it is saying that we are still working upon the discussions and there have been agreements regarding formation of a core group to discuss this issue. This particular statement has been given by the President of Maldives. This particular move, it was demanded during the India Out campaign, which was very much vocal during the Mohammad Muizzu's candidature for the president. This has come as a disappointment for Indians as they want from Maldives to look towards Indian troops from a positive perspective. While that has failed to do so, President Mohammad Muizzu, he has even broken the tradition. There has been a tradition in Maldives that whenever a newly elected president would come, India would be treated as their first port of call. But Mohammad Muizzu, he has broken off this tradition and he chose Turkey as his first bilateral visit, official visit after his election as president. So these incidences that we are seeing, what can we grasp from it is that there are bigger underlying issues that India is facing in its neighborhood. There are bigger demands that we have to look at rather than this stand-alone issues. तो अब तक आपने देखा कि कैसे हर अलग देश में इंडिया को प्रॉब्लम्स देखने को पड़ रही है. भारत की प्रॉब्लम बांग्लादेश के साथ भी हो रही है, भूटान के साथ भी हो रही है, राइट. मालदीव्स के साथ अभी अभी जो प्रॉब्लम हो रही है उसके भी अलग पहलू हमें देखने को मिले हैं. If we try to connect all these problems, so we can very finely come at a connecting thread. The connecting thread, we can look at the main underlying issue can be related to India's perception as big brother. इंडिया को हमेशा ऐसा बड़े भाई के तौर पे देखा गया है जो छोटे भाई के राज्यों में दखल अंदाजी करता है. While India wants to promote its policy of neighborhood first, other neighbors, they are perceiving at a policy of India first. तो जहां भारत अपने दूसरे करीबी देशों को पहले रखना चाहता है, दूसरे देश उसे समझते हैं कि भारत खुद को पहले रख रहा है, जिस वजह से काफी प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, जिसमें हमारी पॉलिसी इनिशिएटिव्स they are not able to gain so much fruits as we are wanting them to. Because of this underlying issue, another main underlying demand from the several region is also of less Indian interference. आप भूटान में देखिए, वो चाहते हैं कि वो अपनी फॉरेन पॉलिसी बिना इंडिया की गाइडेंस के करें. नेपाल में देखिए, वो भारत के राज्यों को अपना राज्य बनाकर मैप पे दिखा रहे हैं. श्रीलंका चाइना के इन्फ्लुएंस में या अब हमारे प्रोजेक्ट डिलेज की वजह से भी श्रीलंका अपने प्रोजेक्ट्स अब ज्यादा से ज्यादा चाइना को देना चाहता है. तो इंडिया की इंटरफेरेंस हमारे नेबर्स या और भी अलग देश वो चाहते हैं कि कम से कम ही हो. क्यों? क्योंकि उन्हें लगता है कि इंडिया एक अग्रेसिव पावर है. इंडिया वांट्स टू पोर्ट्रे इट्स इमेज एज बिग ब्रदर. Whereas India's policy, it is working on building its different approach and soft power in the region, but that policy is getting backfired. So India का perception has become a major issue in India's neighborhood. Apart from these, there are several other issues also that India faces in its neighborhood. We'll look at them. The first is the border disputes. हमारे काफी देशों के साथ हमारे बॉर्डर को लेके हमारे विवाद चलते रहते हैं. Then the rising Chinese footprints, जैसे जैसे चाइना अपना रोल इन देशों में बढ़ा रहा है, भारत के साथ हमारे उन देशों के संबंध बिगड़ते जा रहे हैं. Then the domestic issues, भारत की अपनी निजी समस्याएं या निजी पॉलिसीज जो हम सपोर्ट दूसरे लोगों को देते हैं, कभी कभी उनको ठीक से परसीव नहीं किया जाता है दूसरे देशों के द्वारा. The problem of terrorism, extreme trust deficit. Now, because of all these situations, this factor, extreme trust deficit, is also getting emboldened. And then the India's tilt towards West. भारत का पश्चिमी देशों की तरफ बढ़ता झुकाव भी भारत के साउथ एशिया के संबंधों के लिए हानिकारक साबित हो रहा है. If we look at more detail about this, so in the border issues that I discussed, तो आप एग्जाम्पल देखिए, चाइना के साथ सियाचिन का प्रॉब्लम है, अक्साई चिन का प्रॉब्लम है, अरुणाचल में भी चाइना और भारत का बॉर्डर पे डिस्प्यूट है. पाकिस्तान के साथ देखें तो कश्मीर हमेशा से ही एक बिगर इशू रहा है विद पाकिस्तान. हाल ही में नेपाल के साथ भी काला पानी क्षेत्र में भारत के साथ बिगड़ते संबंध देखे गए हैं. विद भूटान ऑल्सो, विद बांग्लादेश ऑल्सो. जितना बड़ा हमारा उनके साथ बाउंड्री है, उतने ही हम उनके साथ अब बिगड़ते संबंध देख सकते हैं. Border disputes are also not only restricted to the boundary itself, but also to the water sharing disputes. तो अगर हम देखें कि रिवर शेयरिंग में भी देशों में प्रॉब्लम है, तो जैसे बांग्लादेश में तीस्ता रिवर Teesta River has remained a major source of contention. Then with Nepal, we have Kosi River, right? So river sharing and the land sharing boundaries, they are also getting affected. Apart from this, जैसे कि मैंने बताया चाइना के बढ़ते हुए प्रोजेक्ट्स, आप नेपाल में देखिए Pokhara, Kathmandu, these have been the major areas where Chinese footprints have increased. Then in Sri Lanka, और ये Belt and Road Initiative, largely this has become or gained inroads throughout India's neighborhood and has become a major challenge for India's security and other developmental goals as well. Apart from this, Sri Lanka, Hambantota port and the lease that Sri Lanka had to give to China, it is a major example of increasing China's footprints. Then in Bangladesh, in Maldives, तो चाइना हर एक राज्य में जो भारत के आसपास भी है उसमें अपने प्रोजेक्ट्स बढ़ाता जा रहा है और जिसकी वजह से भारत को कठिनाइयां उठानी पड़ रही हैं. इसके सिवा डोमेस्टिक इश्यूज, एज श्रीलंका we have always remained a issue of the Tamil population which are present in the northern and the eastern parts of Sri Lanka. Apart from it, with the Myanmar, when the refugee crisis was going on from the Rakhine state, then the Cox's Bazar region, so the people from all these regions, they also started migrating to India, and as India voiced their concerns during the treatment of Rohingyas, the relations between India and Myanmar was also suffered. Apart from them, मध्येशी का जो मुद्दा है भारत और नेपाल के राज्यों में, वो भी हमेशा से ही रहा है. India and the Madhesh region, they shares boundary, and Nepal times and again has made these claims that India are fueling the sentiments of Madheshis people to seek secession from Nepal. So that has remained the domestic issues that also harmed India and neighborhood relations. Apart from it, terrorism. Terrorism हर दिशा में अगर आप भारत की देखें, पाकिस्तान जितना भी पाकिस्तान मना कर ले, but it has remained the jihad factory. Pakistan remains to be backing the infiltration and the separatist tendencies in Kashmir also. Apart from it, we have seen Nepal has also remained active or given active support to the Maoists who are seeking extremist activity in the radical forces throughout India. And apart from them, the regions of Myanmar and the Bangladesh and Bhutan, see, the development or the region around them are heavily forested, and it is generally believed by India that these regions are being used by the northeast extremist forces as their training hubs and the basis for drugs and smuggling. So see, these are the issues generally. पहले हमने देखा कि भारत का परसेप्शन कैसे एक बिग ब्रदरली एटीट्यूड इंडिया के रिलेशंस जो उसके अदर देशों के साथ हैं उनमें समस्या पैदा कर रहा है. अपार्ट फ्रॉम इट, वी ऑल्सो लुक्ड एट अदर इश्यूज, जैसे भारत के अपने डोमेस्टिक इश्यूज, जैसे बॉर्डर के डिस्प्यूट्स, terrorism we looked at, right? So all these issues are creating problems for India and its neighborhood. Now to look at the wider implications of these issues, we must take into consideration the regional stability. जब आपस में देशों की तालमेल नहीं बन रही, तो कैसे वो larger picture regional stability के बारे में सोचेंगे? So regional stability, it gets hampered when the bilateral relations are even more tense, right? So the regional stability of South Asia particularly, it is getting backstabbed. Then economic cooperation, because of the distrust and the competitive feelings that the countries in South Asia has, economic cooperation is become a major contention also in this region. South Asia remains to be the least integrated world economy or the least integrating economy throughout the world. So economic cooperation with India and its other neighbors, it is also getting hampered. Apart from it, the diplomatic relations. जैसे कि हमने देखा, इंडिया का परसेप्शन एज बिग ब्रदर और an aggressive power, it is getting strengthened because of such issues in its neighborhood. Apart from it, when India, it seeks the goal of becoming विश्व गुरु, जब भारत अपने आप को एक विश्व गुरु दिखाना चाहता है, पर जब साउथ एशिया में ही उसके रिलेशंस ठीक नहीं है, तो कैसे वो अपनी विश्व गुरु की डिमांड को आगे रख सकता है? तो डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस भी भारत के लिए बुरे साबित हो रहे हैं. Then security and defense, as there has been an environment of distrust and fearful, large number of military preparedness has been made. और जो पैसा, जो रिसोर्सेस हम कहीं और डेवलपमेंट में लगा सकते थे, वो पैसा, वो रिसोर्सेस हम अब लगा रहे हैं मिलिट्री बढ़ाने में. तो जिस वजह से जो आपसी तनाव है, उस वजह से मिलिट्री पे जो पैसा खर्च हो रहा है, उसके लिए भी भारत को प्रॉब्लम उठानी पड़ रही है. Then the humanitarian concerns, the refugee crisis, the migration issues that people are facing because of the political instability, because of the disturbing relations in the neighborhood, that has also remained a major issue in the India's interest. And lastly, if we look at international mediation, दूसरे देश जब साउथ एशिया के देशों के बीच आकर अपना रोल दिखा रहे हैं, the mediation, or we can say the meddling of international powers in the South Asia region has even more increased because of such tensions between the neighbors between the South Asian region, right? तो हमने देखा कि कैसे जो प्रॉब्लम्स थी उनका इंडिया के इंटरेस्ट पर क्या इफेक्ट हो रहा है. ऑल राइट, नाउ विल लुक एट अ वे फॉरवर्ड, कैसे हम इन चीजों से आगे बढ़ने की कोशिश कर सकते हैं. तो एनहांस डिप्लोमेसी एंड एंगेजमेंट, हाई लेवल विजिट्स, राइट, म्यूचुअल कॉन्फ्रेंसेस, दे कैन बी क्रिएटेड. इंडिया शुड एक्टिवली प्रमोट इट्स पॉलिसीज ऑफ नेबरहुड फर्स्ट, or the Gujarat Doctrine, which focused upon non-reciprocity for smaller nations. It should also be proactively used by India. Then the economic cooperation and development, more and more joint infrastructure projects like the free trade agreements. So such kind of economic initiatives should be established so that the risk reduction would be further reduced, right? Apart from it, enhancing cultural exchanges. As South Asia remains historically very united, so such low fruits, they should be addressed. More and more people-to-people relations, cultural exchanges, they should be actively promoted, so as an atmosphere of understanding and amicability, it gets into picture. And then we should also try to address the security concerns. अब जो टेररिज्म की प्रॉब्लम है, वो सिर्फ एक राज्य को प्रभावित नहीं करती है. अब टेररिज्म की प्रॉब्लम चाहे पाकिस्तान में हो, चाहे भारत में हो, तो आसपास के राज्य को भी उनसे खतरा है. तो जो कॉमन हमारे सिक्योरिटी कंसर्न्स हैं, टेररिज्म है, ड्रग ट्रैफिकिंग है, स्मगलिंग है, ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग है, तो उन सब इश्यूज को हमें मिलकर साथ उनका समाधान करना चाहिए. So these remains to be the way forward for such issues that has come up into the neighborhood, and they would also secure more benefits for India and its interest. So that in this video we have discussed about that how Maldives issue is not just a India bilateral relations between India and Maldives, but if we look at it in the larger picture, this has not remained a new issue that has come up. Several such instances have also seen in the past. It also does not remain restricted to the region of Maldives itself. It finds resonance around the other neighboring countries of Bhutan, of Nepal, of Sri Lanka as well, right? So such issues which should be tackled in the more broader region. We looked at their implications on wider perspective and then how we can deal with them. So that's all about this discussion, and thank you.